Today we want to talk about a topic, all-rounder versus specialist. So what does it mean? For example, some dogs are all-round farm dogs. An example could be the Australian cattle dog, a dog that guards, a dog that kills vermin if possible, can guard the premises, and also is able to manage the cattle. So in this example, the Australian cattle dog is a good dog on harsh cattle like bulls that don't want to listen, or semi and feral, whereas he's a little bit too rough on, for example, sheep, and also doesn't have the speed that a specialist does have, in this case the Kelpie. So the Kelpie is less of a good working dog on cattle because it's a little bit too soft, but very energetic, fast, and good working dog with sheep, also semi-feral sheep. So that gives you some insight on what I'm talking about. Also, for example, here you see a Patterdale on the leash. This is a specialist for earthwork, whereas a generalist that can do earthwork but is also good at other work is the German hunting terrier, also known as the German Jagd terrier. So this is a dog that can be used as a terrier on the ground like this one, but also very good in tracking down rounded animals or tracking down hawks, so feral hawks or even the wild swine. That example gives you some additional insight, because the Australian cattle dog is a little bit too rough, or not too rough to be used on sheep, but can be used on sheep. Also Patterdales are used on hawks, but they are not as good at it as, for example, a German Jagd terrier is. And why is that? I already mentioned Australian cattle dog is a little bit too rough. That could damage the sheep, and also it doesn't have that condition and speed that a Kelpie does have. But the same attends to the Patterdale terrier. Although being very small, it's like a catch dog. So normally a catch dog would be the size of an American Bulldog, Dogo Argentino, or something to like for working on hawks. But this little guy will try to do the same with only a very small fraction of the weight and strength of those bigger dogs. So you can imagine it will be effective on holding the hawk, especially if you have multiple terriers on one hawk, which is often the case, whereas the bigger catch dog often work in a little bit smaller packs. But you can imagine that a hawk would be easily hurting smaller dogs than bigger dogs, and also he will just throw them around, whereas a big dog is harder to manage it, to control. So this gives you a little bit of insight, and also some views on this topic. Another example I will tell you is that if you want a very good dog for military police operations, so the dog that you can really perform, and it's also very good against ill intent personnel, you could go for the Belgian Malinois. This is the supreme athlete and will be the best at those tactical operations. Whereas if you want more an all-round guard dog that can do quite some things that the Belgian Malinois can do, but has a lot more laid back character, is easier on the family members, it's also easier and more trusted with children, one could go, for example, with a Rottweiler, a German Rottweiler. This dog is bigger, has a more dog-like Molosser type character, so more laid back, but it's a good working breed and will also have more of an intimidation factor, so it can prevent things easier than the very focused and very driven Malinois can do. So there are some insights on what you want. Also, for example, if you want to have a dog with man-stopping capabilities, a Rottweiler will be better, because if a Rottweiler hits you, it's harder to get away from it than it is from a Malinois. Malinois is fast, of course, and can chase easier. But once the Rottweiler latches on, you really have a problem. And it can also be the case, for example, if you want a very big dog, there's certain characteristics of a very small dog. There are more specialists than the medium type of dogs, because they can be used on more purposes. There are some exceptions. For example, very small terriers can be used on any small earth quarry, whereas the bigger ones don't fit in all the quarry holes. So that could be an exception. But then again, they will be hurt a lot more than small ones. So back on the topic of all-rounders, my vision is quite simple. I think even a specialist dog can do a lot of things, especially if it's a dog that has been hard selected to do things that are almost impossible for other breeds. You also see it with the game dog, the American Pit Bull Terrier. It's a dog developed with one purpose: to be the best canine warrior, but it is also used on hunting against hawks. It's also used by police force, especially to improve their breeds, to give them more reliability with the police corps, and also more pain resistance and even more athletic capabilities. It's the best weight pool contender that there is, pound for pound. It's a dog that can be used also very good with humans, because it's people friendly. And sometimes you have to think about this. So even though it was selected only for pit work, or predominantly for pit work, it can be used for many things. Also in agility, it's an extreme athlete. And also one should notice that some things are very nice about certain dog breeds, that they can do all, for example. But take the example of the Yacht Terrier. It's not a good family dog, whereas, for example, a Patterdale Terrier, it can be a very good family dog. And there are always exceptions. For example, some Yacht Terriers are quite relaxed in house, but the majority are almost lunatics if you compare them with more bull terrier type of character that's laid back inside and very energetic outside. Same as Malinois. For military purposes, there is no better dog. And of course, they interbreed some pit bull blood in there for their working Malinois, and they interbreed Dutch Shepherd. Is also a very good working type of dog. But for their line of work, this Malinois X or Malinois crosses working type are the best. But they are so high driven. If you want that high driven dog in your family, it's a hard life. And also they're not as reliable, because they're that alpha character that they also want to be the boss of the humans. And pit bulls normally don't have this trait. So that's an enormous benefit. Also, Patterdales don't have this trait. Many Mastiff or Molosser don't have this trait, but they want to be the alpha over the boss. Of course, the bigger the dog is, the bigger the responsibility, but this is something you have to think about. And Rottweilers have it to a certain degree, but they are different than these shepherd breeds, these high-driven working shepherd breeds. And it could be easier family dog as a result. And that could make a dog a better all-rounder for your specific needs. It's not that I don't like Malinois. Perhaps I will have a Malinois in the future. I really like them, and also the Dutch Shepherds of Performance line. I really like them. But please keep into consideration what is the best fit. For me personally, I like the Bull Terrier character a lot more. I do. And also, if I would get a Malinois or Dutch Shepherd that already has more bull blood in them, I would look for a version that has a character closer resembling that of a Bull Terrier than that of a average Malinois, working Malinois. And even this topic, I would rather have a bull herder, so it already has Malinois or Dutch Shepherd, something like that in, but also bull blood, than a pure shepherd breed. And that's also a thing that one could imagine. If two dogs have the traits that you want to see combined, you could opt for a cross. But please be wary that crosses do not always produce as reliable as the breeds do. Even in breeds there's quite some differentiation between the one pup and the other. But with crossbreeding you can get dogs that are not clicking as reliably. So some dogs look, for example, a lot like the mother, some dogs might look like the father, and if it's two different breeds, you could also have that character more, and some look like a cross between the two. So it's a lot harder to get what you want, but you could opt for that. And some crosses are reliably producing the things that you want. So for example, the bull herder cross is known to produce stronger dogs that are more reliable with the corpse, and they have also a more fighting spirit. So if the going gets tough, the tough get going. They don't back down as easily as pure Malinois do. And also sometimes a program, if you select for certain traits, they inbreed a lot. And by inbreeding you can also lose some of your strong points, and then you need some heterosis of another source to bring that back to point. So in general, my advice would be look for a dog that fits the lifestyle and the requirements that you want, instead of just looking at the best dog at a certain task without looking at the other things that you need in your life. And of course, life is a compromise. It's either a compromise that you don't have the best dog for a certain task, or it is a compromise that you don't have a dog that is suitable to the rest of your life. And of course there are some exceptions. Dogs like a specialist, like an American Pit Bull Terrier or Patterdale Terrier, I would really recommend, because they have the characteristics that make them good dogs in many aspects. So specialist does not have to mean that it cannot do the other tasks. Please keep this in mind. But it is the case that if you have a dog that is an all-rounder, you often have less pronounced characteristics. And if some of the characteristics that you are looking for have a two-edged sword type of influence, so they are very good at the bad guys, for example, but also very bad if it would be in your family, please take this into consideration. And enjoy your dogs. Also, if you have a specialist that is very high driven, like a Malinois, if you put all the time in it and you learn it the way it should be learned, you have a very big chance that you have a very good dog that is fitting perfectly within your family. But also be very honest to yourself and think if you have that time to spare, and if you can be the big contributor to the dog's health and happiness as well. And if you are, then this could be a perfect fit. Have a nice day. Bye bye.